Hello everyone, this is Pratibha. Let us now go through the second part of the story, The Big Fish by N.P. Hafiz Muhammad. In the first part of the story, we saw how a visitor comes to Alison Kutti's house with a proposal to start fish farming in his pond. The visitor suggests that it is going to be a profitable business, and Mariam, Alison's wife, is attracted to the proposal, whereas Alison is quite reluctant. So, finally, in order to come to a decision, they consult Bapa and they start on their journey to meet Bapa at his house. On their way to meet Bapa, Alison and Mariam confront protesters in the middle of the road. So obviously, we wonder what is the significance of this meeting a few protesters, which seems in the beginning quite out of the way of the story, because the story is about a visitor coming with a proposal of fish farming, and Alison and Mariam are going to meet their father, right, to take a decision, since they are not able to take a decision on their own. So what is the relevance of this protest scene? How is it connected to the story? So when we find these protesters, they are seen in the middle of the road and they are shouting slogans. Please do by heart these slogans, it may be asked. So the slogans go like this: Yankee lackeys go home, say no to killer collar, drown the world police in the Arabian Sea, death to global capital. So that is their slogan. These people are symbolic of people who resist globalization and privatization. And I'm sure this is quite we can all relate to this. We all understand this because we have heard a lot about this protest against cola and the multinational companies generally, how they try to utilize our resources to make profit for themselves. But unfortunately, most of the time such protests go unheard, or to make it more worse, what happens is such people are called as terrorists and Naxals, because as we see in this scene, the tailor whom Alison and his wife meets, he calls them terrorists, and the police also come. So police is supposed to control or fight against injustice, but here the people who are victims are suppressed by the same police. So it is ironic, because we are not able to differentiate between benefactors and oppressors. That is a very sad situation that we are in these days. And even when they reach Bapa's house and Bapa asks them why they are late, immediately they mention about these people and they refer to them as Naxals. Again, people who are usually Naxals refer to people who are who resort to violent methods to achieve their purpose. But here these people who are actually fighting for the rights of the common people are labeled as terrorists and Naxals, which is quite ironic. So this scene is very important because it is a warning to people who fall for the trap of development. So in the name of development, how we are made to suffer. Upon reaching Bapa's house, Mariam tries to convince Bapa, and various arguments that she raises in order to convince him and to make him agree to fish farming is that is, one is it does not require much investment, and even the basic initial investment that it requires, she could manage that very well because she has some money saved from a chitty, so that they can register for the partnership, they can clean the pond and buy fish. And she's also very tactical because she mentions that they need only Bapa's blessing or his consent, his permission to go forward with this. And when Bappa is concerned about the success of this venture, especially with a man like Alassan, who's picturized as quite lazy, Mariam soon points out that they cannot think of its success now because they have a lot of responsibilities or liabilities now before them. That is, one is that their daughter is around marriageable age. Alison is already unemployed as such, and they have to find money to meet the educational expense of their son, and their only income is by selling coconuts from their land. And even that land and the house that they live in has been built by Bappa. So that is the only means of sustenance for them. So these are the concerns that she has about their future. And finally, to convince Bappa, she weeps profusely. She goes on weeping so that she can win his sympathy, because she mentions about her fate, because she has such uncaring husband like Alison, who's not ready to take up any initiative to better their future or to make money. And whereas she mentions that she is suffering everything in silence. When Mariam mentions about Alison's character, Bappa could also easily relate to it, easily understand it, because he, after all, knows his own son. So he was not at all interested in studies. He failed in SSLC, so he's educationally backward. He was not at all ambitious like his brothers, who were all abroad. In fact, when they offered him visa, he rejected it. He was not at all interested in social status. Instead, he preferred quiet village life without any ambition or any liking towards material pleasures, buying things or building a house, having a very lucrative or a job that many people wish for. He didn't have any such dreams. So he was financially backward, and he was not at all tempted by his brother's wealth or prosperity. He was not at all materialistic. Instead, he found happiness in simple things like chatting with Bappa or plants and birds. So these are all usually considered as the traits of unsuccessful person. And we also have heard about such things quite often, because people advise us that if you want to be successful, you shouldn't be sitting idle. If you're found sitting and enjoying the beauty of nature, just chatting with people, often successful people say that these are all the characteristics of an unsuccessful person. So what the author is trying to point out here is how, as human beings, we lose the importance of such simple things in life, how to find happiness in simple things, and we go after and we so much worry about such bigger things in life, so much so that we end up wasting much of the beautiful moments in life. So that is even evident when Alassan later on mentions about his morning routine, which gives us an idea about his character as such. So this is the character sketch of Alassan. After a Subha Namas, that is his morning prayer, what he usually does is he comes and sits near his pond, gazing at and looking at his little fish, and he enjoys their company. That is just what he wants, not money, not a big house and things like that. And he's not even worried about the future. So what he does is he comes and looks at them, and then he gives them food, handful of rice flour, and even he's so much attached to his fish that he can sense their worry when later on in the story he accepts a proposal and the big fish is put inside this pond. He is worried about his little fish, whereas when he mentions about his worry to his wife, she dismisses this as pure madness. And this is exactly something that we can often see in the society also, how people who enjoy the simple things in life are dismissed as mad. So that's a way to control them, to bring them, to make them follow the path set by other people, to make them also run behind material pleasures, ignoring the uh, importance of relationships, be that with your own family members or nature. So that is something that is brought about very beautifully in this story. In the heart-touching climax of the story, we find how Mariam is overjoyed, happy at the prospect of making money after harvesting the fish in 4 months' time. And she remarks, "It is God's gift to us, a way out of all our troubles." Please by heart this, because this is something usually, again, something that people point out to make somebody follow the usual pattern. That is, we are always advised that do this because this is a way out of your troubles, and everyone will inevitably fall for that. So but while Mariam is happy, we find that Alison is disturbed and in fact sleepless. And one moonlit night, when everybody is sleeping, he comes to his pond, because lately he has observed that his little fish do not respond to his calls at dawn. He doesn't see them. So that is why he tries to come and see whether he can have a glimpse of them, at least during the night. And fortunately enough, he could see a single fish there, which lifts its head. And it is very beautifully described in the story by using imagery. That is the authors and even the translators' success. How this imagery is brought out, how with the help of moonlit night. So it's a moonlit night, and when this little fish lifts its head from inside the pond and looks it has a sad expression on its face while it looks at Alison. And Alison feels that the way the moonlight shines on its face, he imagines that it is like there is a silvery glitter. We always see that, right? The white light of the moon and mixed with the darkness. So he felt as if like his fish was in tears. So this light gave that impression that the fish was in tears, and he became so sad. And then suddenly, before he could think or do anything, the big fish, the big pink fish, rushed in like a missile with a splash, its mouth wide open. And Alison was so helpless that what he could do was just shut his eyes tightly, because he knew what is going to come. And when he opened his eyes, the little fish had disappeared. So obviously it was swallowed by the big plump fish. So this by this incident, witnessing this incident, Alison felt chained and dragged to the depths of the water. And the imagery is not complete yet. See how the author brings it so beautifully to an end. That is, when Alison finally looks at this big fish, what happened after swallowing the little fish? The big fish was still patrolling the surface of the water, opening and shutting its mouth at will. So it is all free. Earlier it was a little fish's pond, its space. But now the big fish has taken over that space, and it is so very happy. It is so very free. And the same moonlight now upon this big fish, what is the imagery that Alison sees there? That is the light on its teeth. So I hope you can imagine it, the big teeth. Especially some big fishes have this kind of when they open their mouth, and when the light shines, Not that the fish actually has a teeth, but still, the kind of the play of the light, with darkness created a sense as if they were smiling. The terror was quite evident. There was this flash of light, glint, which was quite terrifying for even a man, let alone a small fish. So here it is quite again quite symbolic of how his future is going to be unlike what Mariam dreams. That is a tragedy. Just like his creatures in the pond, he is also not going to have any control over his life now. It is already under the control of the businessman who, like the big fish, would only be concerned about his profit, while Alison and his lot would be left tearful and helpless like his little fish. The major themes raised in the story is a secret and hegemonic ways of globalization and neo-imperialism. So hegemony means power, how with even though globalization initially started off as a system wherein everybody will get equal opportunity, in fact, access to the benefits throughout the world, there will be a sort of equity. But what it resulted in was quite contrary to its initial objective. It ended up something like neo-imperialism. So imperialism suggests the control of, again, powerful, how the power, like British imperialism, we often refer to that, colonization, how the powerful people suppress the less powerful. So neo means new. So this is also something like that, a new form of colonization. We call it globalization, but it is only colonization in a new form. So we have already fought against colonization. So this is something like we are now accepting colonization in another form, because it is again just like the usual standard. It is like how the powerful suppress the powerless. So this is all evident throughout the story, right from the beginning. When the foreign visitor comes there, his mannerism, the way he walks, how his dress is described, the costume, impeccable black shoes. So everything about him is ideal, something to be aspired for. That is how it is presented. While he dismisses Alison and his people, so much so that the Alassan and even Mariam, we see how it is quite evident in her dealings. That is, she goes to the point of devaluing their identity, that my husband is nothing, compared to this man. He is so knowledgeable, he knows my mind more than my husband. So that is a kind of impression that they can create. And his dialogue, what pitiable lives people lead, he makes fun of Alison and his people, crude, uncivilized ways and foolish beliefs to back them. It is still the Stone Ages here. So all these are quite symbolic of how hegemony operates, how power operates. And he gives false promises of comfortable and luxurious life and substantiates it with sentences like, this is a golden opportunity, the choice is yours, the sky is the limit. So all these statements, when we hear it, when ignorant, poor people hear it, they feel that, okay, this man is knowledgeable, so maybe he's always, that's the kind of impression they give, that they are always right and the others are wrong. And he also illustrates his points with figures and data. He says, would you call it a favorable balance sheet? Where Alison is quite not able to follow it at all, what he is speaking. And then he even cites examples of people from neighborhood who have been successful in the business. And these people, the group of these people, he calls them, he even names them fish farming collective. That is another way of this power, how power works. They give stylized names to all these things so that ignorant people often fall for it. And just like that, Mariam becomes his tool. Because even though Alassan doesn't want to fall in his trap, and till the end he has this kind of intuitive feeling that this is not something for the good. That is what he feels. But even then he has to surrender, because Mariam is used as a tool. That is another way in which such power works, and quite secretly. It's not direct, it's very indirect always. And Mariam succeeds in forcing Alison accept the offer by threatening to go on a fast, and she even fasts without having food. She stays for many days, so that Alison has no way but to agree to the man's offer. There are more examples in the story to point out how power works. That is, Alassan compares the pink fish in the pond bought for fish farming to smiling cretins. Cretins means idiots. It's a kind of abusive word. So just like that, the foreign visitor, when he folds his hand upon seeing Alassan, that is Alassan, because Mariam has forced him to accept the offer. She threatened to have stay without food. He had to go and accept the offer. So when he goes to meet this foreign visitor, he acts like he's very happy to see him. He folds his hand. That's all a strategy, to trap him. And he says, I knew you would take a wise decision. Who would like to turn his back on progress and development? Who can turn away from the shining path of science and technology? So these are again quite often quoted, sugar-coated words actually. People, it's like trapping. The best way to trap a man is by praising him. And that is, whatever decision you're taking is wise. But of course, we know that Alison is not a type who would fall for all these. But again, what we find here is how powerless, even if they don't want to, people are somehow made to fall in this trap, because once the powerful get control on their prey, their attitude changes. So earlier this was his attitude, but then once he signs a bond or something like that, which will be there inevitably, what happens is he'll just go about his business. That is what we see later on. After he accepts the proposal, the people come from the company side. Many workers come to their house, and the next week itself, at first he is given a registration card so that to prove that he is registered. And then the next morning, 9 sharp, half a dozen men in uniform arrived in a jeep at Alison's home. After a routine glance at the registration card, they busied themselves cleaning the pond and spraying it with a disinfectant. So all this are symbolic, because now they don't ask Alassan or his wife for their permission. It's as if it is there under their control now. And they next week they come and deposit the plum pink fish. They just drop it into the pond. Then they give instructions. It's no more the cordial, hospitable kind of behavior. It's all very authoritative. They turn authoritative now. They just give instructions. So that is it is almost symbolic of what is going to happen in the climax, or what that is, like the big fish who fatten themselves by swallowing the small fish. They just open and shut mouth at their will. They do things according to their wish. The story, The Big Fish, can be seen as a critique of global capitalism. Alison, as a failure, symbolizes the plight of the underprivileged in the era of global capitalism, whereas people like his brothers, though forced to sacrifice a lot, are presented as flourishing so as to lure more such scapegoats to work for them. That is, the rich businessmen from developed countries who are represented by the foreign visitor. They reap all the benefits of globalization, whereas people like Alassan and his brothers become their scapegoats. So the benefit of globalization, like entry into world market, all this is enjoyed by this rich or powerful category of people. Even when the farmers, the fellow farmers in the neighborhood, describe the benefits of fish farming, how do they describe it? They call it their newly acquired profession. and they describe the benefits of fish farming as vociferously as in a political campaign. These are the phrases that the author uses to describe this. Quite beautifully he describes it through these words. Significant. It is very relevant and significant. It serves its purpose because it shows how these poor people don't realize that they are in a trap. In fact, they boast about it. They call it a profession. They fall for the trap of this man who uses such words. He actually puts these words into their mouth. These powerful people. So the author, by using these words, these phrases in simple and idiomatic language, unravels a serious and challenging aspect of society. So at the first reading, the story just sounds like any other story. There's nothing significant. But when we really look at it, when we understand the relevance or significance behind each and every word, we realize how the real significance of these things, how ignorant people mistake victimization for development. So in that sense, this story is definitely a critique of global capitalism, aptly conveyed through its climax, where the big fish, representative of the capitalists, eat the underprivileged or small fish to satisfy their greed. So the message that the story gives is very relevant in today's society, especially when we need to be more sensitive to such things so that we are no more victims of such greed. Hope you have understood the lesson very well. Thank you.